Assassin's Creed is a series of popular video games, or rather a series of video games that were popular for a couple of years, a couple more years ago, set in various meticulously recreated historical time periods chronicling the centuries-long battle between the evil, world domination scheming Templars and their nemesis, the Assassins. The gimmick of the games, though, is that it's actually taking place in the present, and all of the assassin stuff you're seeing is actually the visions of people plugged into a machine called the Animus that lets them relive the genetic memories of their ancestors, which without fail turn out to have been assassins, because who wants to watch a movie called like Middle Manager's Creed or something? Ostensibly, this gimmick is meant to be Assassin's Creed's explanation for why video gamey stuff keeps happening in otherwise realistic historical settings like the Renaissance or the Crusades or wherever. But in practice, it's also an interesting example of a narrative conceit that only works in the context of a video game. You see, it doesn't really matter that what we're seeing is just a simulation of stuff that already happened and thus shouldn't have any tension, because we still actually have to play through it so it feels like it does. That's clever and functional. But in a movie, yeah, that was always going to be the problem, right? The actual plot of the film is telling us that the assassin stuff doesn't matter because it's just fancy sci-fi flashback stuff, but the assassins themselves are all anyone really cares about. That's why they get the parkour and the hoodies and all the backstory. So instead, Assassin's Creed the movie decides to relegate the assassins to the B story and focus on the present day, which anyone who's ever played an Assassin's Creed game can tell you is always the most tedious fucking part of the story. What could possibly go wrong? Well, everything. And yet somehow also nothing. Now look, we've pretty much known for over a year that the Assassin's Creed movie was going to be a pile of ass, because otherwise why would they be releasing it in fucking December to get squished by all of the other better-known, more reliable blockbusters? But what's shocking is just how empty it is. The action is hopelessly generic, the story is stripped bare, it's totally uninvolving, there's not a single memorable or remotely interesting thing going on in the whole damn production. The only noteworthy thing I could discern was how ugly it is. Every scene looks like it was processed through the worst possible Instagram filter. It's just really unpleasant to watch. Now, in case you were wondering, no, we aren't following any of the known protagonists from the various games. After all, that might have been interesting. Instead, we got Michael Fassbender as a death row inmate who gets grabbed up by the Templars because he's the last known descendant of an assassin from Inquisition-era Spain, who was the last known person to hold on to the magical relic they're hunting in this one. Jeremy Irons is the Templar running the Abstergo program, Marion Cotillard is running the Animus machine, Brendan Gleeson, Michael K. Williams, and Charlotte Rampling are also in this for some ungodly reason. It's pretty obvious the studio knew they had a piece of shit on their hands for a while, because it shows every sign of having been cut to shreds in the editing in the vain hope that it might be fast-paced enough for the action crowd. There are dozens of characters in both time periods, but we barely learn their names and motivations beyond who's a Templar, who's an assassin, and I guess that's kind of it. There's a female assassin who plays a major part in the flashback storylines with a connection to Fassbender's character, but I would be hard-pressed to tell you her name or what she was actually doing in the story, even though she's by default the most interesting person in the film. The sheer level of apathy on display here is a sight to behold. Let's be clear, this might have been mildly entertaining. The plot is a bunch of stupid nonsense, but it's the same components as those Da Vinci Code movies, and those are usually pretty entertaining in their own dopey respect, so taking that and adding a bunch of ninja stuff and National Treasure type business should have been some dumb fun if they weren't going to try to make it good. But what puts the final nail in Assassin's Creed is that it's so incredibly fucking self-serious. It never sees the inherent humor in its ridiculous premise. Nobody in the cast seems to be fully awake. They're just as bored by it as we are, blandly mouthing out expositional dialogue and waiting for their next cue. Everybody except Fassbender, of course, he mugs his way through this shit like he thinks he's gonna morph into Daniel Day-Lewis at any minute. I wish I could muster some at least righteous rage to be more entertaining here, but the plain fact is, Assassin's Creed is a nothing movie that isn't even good at being disposable, which maybe makes it the perfect piece of shit with which to close out this miserable year on planet Earth. 1/2 of a star, do not take the leap.